Prophecy is not prediction, it is preparation. When people hear the word prophecy, many assume it's about foretelling the future with absolute certainty, like reading a script already written. But that's a shallow way to understand the depth of what true prophecy offers. Real prophecy does not chain us to a future we cannot escape. Instead, it awakens us to the possibilities of what may come, depending on how we live, think, and choose today. It is like a wise teacher pointing to a storm on the horizon. The storm might come or it might pass, depending on whether we heed the signs and adjust our course. Prophecy is the ancient wisdom whispering to us not only about what could happen, but what we are meant to prepare for inwardly and outwardly. Ezekiel's visions were not just dramatic images of war and upheaval. They were spiritual alarms meant to shake people awake from their moral sleep. The purpose was never just to inform, but to transform. Preparation is a spiritual discipline. It requires humility, the willingness to admit that we may not be ready, that there are blind spots in our awareness, and that our priorities might be misplaced. Ezekiel's words were given to a people who had drifted from their foundation, who had built lives on the sand of compromise rather than the rock of truth. He was calling them, and us, to return, to realign, to prepare, not by fear, but by clarity. When a person prepares, they start seeing the world differently. They become more alert, more sensitive to the movements of spirit beneath the surface of events. Preparation trains the heart to listen, not just to voices on the news, but to the voice within. In every era, humanity stands at crossroads, and at those moments, prophecy becomes a mirror. It reflects not only what might be coming, but who we have become. It does not say, "This will happen no matter what." It says, "This will happen unless there is change, unless there is repentance, unless there is awareness." This is why prophecy is such a sacred trust. It's not about controlling the future. It's about being spiritually fit for it. It's about becoming the kind of person who can stand, not run, who can endure, not collapse, who can lead others into calm while the world trembles. We must understand that preparation is not panic. Panic is born from being caught off guard, from being spiritually asleep when we should be awake. But preparation is peace. It is quiet strength. It is the trained mind that knows storms will come and has already built its house on the rock. When Ezekiel described coming battles, strange alliances, and divine interventions, it was not to frighten people. It was to refocus them. Look at your life, look at your nation, look at the choices you make. Are they rooted in truth? Are they guided by purpose? Are they aligned with God's design? If not, then now is the time to prepare. We prepare not by trying to control external events, but by transforming our inner condition. A prepared heart is unshaken by chaos. A prepared mind is not fooled by false peace. Preparation teaches discernment. It helps us see what is essential and let go of what is temporary. When you truly prepare, you learn to live with intention. You begin to speak, act, and decide with the awareness that you are part of a greater unfolding story. You are not passive. You are responsible. You are not waiting for fate. You are forging character. That is the essence of prophetic preparation. There is great wisdom in the way nature prepares. The tree does not wait for winter to begin changing. It begins in autumn. It sheds what it no longer needs. It lets go early, so that when the storm comes, it is already bare, already ready. The same is true for us. Don't wait for the moment of shaking to begin your preparation. Let go of what no longer serves your spirit now. Strengthen your roots, deepen your prayer, watch your thoughts, guard your heart, seek wisdom over noise. This is preparation. This is how we honor the prophetic voice. Sometimes preparation feels invisible. There is no applause, no recognition, no immediate result. But in the silence of that discipline, greatness is forged. Think of the monk who trains day and night, not because there is a threat today, but because he knows the day will come. Think of the soldier who sharpens his sword even in peace. He is not paranoid, he is prepared, and so must we be, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, not out of anxiety, but out of calling. The world is shifting. Ancient alliances are reforming. Nations are posturing. But the greatest preparation is not in bunkers or headlines. It is in hearts that are awake, in souls that are anchored, in minds that see with spiritual eyes. Ezekiel's prophecy was not about politics. It was about priorities. It was not a warning of doom, but a call to alignment, and every person who hears it has a choice. You can dismiss it as ancient text, or you can recognize it as a mirror held up to your generation. Will you be ready, not just to survive, but to serve, not just to react, but to lead, not just to panic, but to guide others into peace? This is the deeper meaning. This is the reason we must take prophecy seriously, not because we worship the future, but because we are shaping it right now with how we live, love, and prepare. So, let us not ask what will happen. Let us ask who we are becoming. Let us not chase signs in fear. Let us become signs of hope. For in a time of uncertainty, a prepared soul shines like a beacon. While others drown in confusion, the prepared one walks calmly through the storm, not because they are stronger, but because they listened early. They took the warning seriously. They used the prophecy wisely. That is the path. That is the way. Prophecy is not prediction. It is preparation, and the time to prepare is now. External conflict reflects internal imbalance. What we see unfolding on the global stage is never just about governments, borders, weapons, or strategies. These things are the outer shell, the visible manifestation of much deeper forces at work. Nations do not rise against one another only because of history or politics, but because there is unrest in the soul of humanity. The conflict between countries often mirrors the conflict within individuals. The tension between pride and humility, fear and trust, greed and contentment, anger and peace. When we observe war, aggression, betrayal, and division in the world, it invites us to look inward and ask what in ourselves is unhealed, unresolved, and unreconciled. True peace can never be built on a foundation of inner chaos. Until the soul of man is aligned with higher principles, the world will continue to reflect that misalignment through conflict. The prophecy of Ezekiel speaks of great wars and the movements of mighty powers. But it is not simply a geopolitical message. It is a spiritual message encoded in global events. The nations involved, Gog, Magog, Persia, and others, are not just locations on a map. They are symbols of ideologies, desires, and attitudes that battle not only in nations, but in hearts. When Israel is surrounded, when threats rise from Iran or alliances form in unpredictable ways, we must go beyond fear and ask deeper questions. What kind of energy is being released into the world to make such movements possible? What kind of collective mindset allows conflict to thrive while peace remains elusive? These questions require courage because they shift the spotlight from them to us. No one can claim to have perfect peace within. All of us carry shadows, old wounds, fears, bitterness, envy, or unresolved pain, and when these inner shadows are not addressed, they project outward. Just as an individual can sabotage relationships, a nation can sabotage peace. And just as a person can live in denial about their inner chaos, societies can do the same. The external war becomes an excuse, a distraction from the internal war we are too afraid to fight. But the prophecy of Ezekiel is meant to awaken us. It's not just a forecast, it is a mirror. It shows us what happens when we neglect the soul and chase power. It shows us what erupts when we live out of alignment with truth. Think of the individual who is always in conflict with others. They argue, accuse, and blame. They see enemies everywhere, but often the real enemy is within. Their pride, insecurity, lack of forgiveness. The same dynamic applies to nations. A nation that is deeply insecure or spiritually blind will interpret every move as a threat, and its response will be aggressive. But that aggression is not strength, it is a symptom. It shows that the nation has not cultivated inner stability. It is reacting, not responding. It is driven by fear, not by wisdom, and so it spirals into conflict after conflict, never able to find peace because it has not found peace within. This is why transformation must begin at the personal level. We cannot wait for world leaders to fix the world. We must fix ourselves. If enough individuals purify their intentions, their thoughts, their speech, and their actions, they begin to affect the collective consciousness. They become lights in a dark time. They become stabilizers in an unstable world. And even though they may not hold political power, they hold something greater, spiritual authority, the authority that comes from a life in alignment. And that authority can shift atmospheres. It can bring clarity where there was confusion. It can reduce the tension in a room, a home, or even a community. This is the power of internal balance. When the world feels like it is on the edge, when nations threaten each other, and prophecy seems to unfold before our eyes, it is not a time for panic. It is a time for self-examination. What thoughts are you feeding? What emotions dominate your daily life? What unresolved conflicts are you carrying that may be contributing to the greater unrest? These are not just private concerns. They ripple outward. Energy is contagious. And every one of us is either adding to the world's peace or subtracting from it by how we live. The inner world and the outer world are not separate. They are reflections of each other. There is a story told of a great warrior who went to a wise monk and asked how to bring peace to his land. The monk said, "Go sit under a tree and make peace with your father, your mother, your enemy, and your own soul." The warrior replied, "But I already have." The monk looked at him and said, "Then you are already changing the world." This story reminds us that inner balance is not a small, private matter. It is a seed with global impact. Every healed wound, every calmed fear, every choice to forgive sends out ripples, and those ripples can become waves of change. In the prophecy of Ezekiel, the enemies of Israel rise with confidence, thinking they are in control, but they are not. There are deeper laws at work, laws of cause and effect, of justice and mercy, of spirit over flesh. And these laws do not respond to human pride, they respond to truth. The prophecy teaches that no alliance, no weapon, no army can stand if it is built on lies and spiritual imbalance. In the end, what matters is not the size of the army, but the condition of the soul. And so, this prophecy is not only about Israel or Iran, it is about all of us. It is about whether we are aligned with truth or drifting in delusion. The conflicts in the Middle East, the tensions across the globe, are not just ancient feuds reignited. They are reflections of a world that has lost its center, and the way back is not through domination, but through awakening. We must return to stillness, to silence, to self-awareness. We must create inner order so that we do not replicate disorder. We must anchor ourselves so that we are not tossed by every wave of fear. This is the spiritual path, and it is available to anyone who is willing to look within, to take responsibility, and to transform from the inside out. The greatest power is not the one that can conquer nations, but the one that can conquer self. The greatest peace is not found in treaties, but in truth. And the greatest preparation for the future is to cultivate inner balance today. If enough of us do this, the reflection will change. The world will begin to shift. Prophecy may still unfold, but we will be ready, not as victims, but as vessels of peace. External conflict reflects internal imbalance. And therefore, the healing of the world must begin with you. In the silence between events, truth reveals itself. The world we live in is constantly moving, filled with noise, urgency, and reaction. Every moment is saturated with information, images, headlines, and opinions. But beneath the rush of daily activity, beneath the surface of what is seen and heard, there is a stillness. In that stillness, if one learns to listen, truth begins to speak. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete. It whispers, and only those who cultivate the discipline of silence can hear it. This is the forgotten art in a world addicted to noise. The wisdom of the ancient prophets like Ezekiel was not formed in crowded markets or political debates. It was birthed in stillness, in sacred solitude where the voice of God could be heard clearly without interference. We often think that truth is found in more data, more analysis, more external knowledge. But truth is not always visible in motion. It reveals itself in the pause, in the space between actions, in the quiet after the storm. The prophecy of Ezekiel, like many sacred texts, was not given in the middle of applause or conflict. It came through moments of surrender and listening. Truth, like a reflection in still water, requires stillness to be seen. If the water is constantly stirred by emotion, fear, or ego, the reflection is broken, distorted, unreadable. But if we become still, truly still, the surface calms, and what was once hidden becomes clear. There is a rhythm to everything. Even war has a pause. Even chaos has a gap. In those in-between spaces, something deeper is always taking place. We are being invited to see what is usually unseen. Just as in music, the most powerful notes are shaped by the silence between them, in life, the most important truths are shaped in the quiet spaces. When Israel faces threat, when Iran makes moves, when alliances are formed or broken, what most people see is the visible headline, but those who are awake look between the lines. They ask, what is happening spiritually? What message is echoing in this silence? What does this moment call us to become? True perception does not come from reacting quickly. It comes from waiting long enough to see what others miss. The prophets of old had this gift because they were not in a hurry. They did not rush to speak, to post, to declare. They waited, they watched. They cultivated inner silence so that when truth did come, it was not distorted by their own opinions. It was clean, powerful, and pure. In today's world, we are so conditioned to respond immediately that we often speak before truth has finished forming. But truth needs space. It does not bloom under pressure. It blossoms in patience. In every season of world history, there have been moments when the surface was calm, but the undercurrents were powerful. In those moments, people who were alert and spiritually grounded knew something was coming. They couldn't always explain it with facts, but they felt it, they discerned it, and they prepared, not with panic, but with quiet strength. This is what it means to live prophetically, not just to predict events, but to live with the kind of awareness that picks up on the subtle signals of divine timing. Those signals often arrive in silence. They come as a deep knowing, not a loud announcement. They come when we are still enough to hear. In the silence between events, there is preparation happening. Sometimes we do not understand why things seem to pause, why plans delay, why progress halts, but in that pause, heaven is working. In that pause, character is being tested, motives are being refined, and souls are being aligned. To those who are spiritually dull, silence feels like stagnation. But to the awakened, silence is sacred. It is the workshop of truth. It is the place where the inner man is strengthened. And when the next movement comes, those who have honored the silence will not be shaken. They will be ready. We live in a world that fears silence because silence forces us to face ourselves. In noise, we can hide. In distraction, we can escape. But in silence, everything is revealed. We begin to hear the internal noise we've been avoiding, the doubts, the wounds, the unspoken questions, but only by facing them can we find truth. The truth about our own hearts, the truth about our times, the truth about what is really needed. This is why the greatest wisdom is often born in retreat, not in hiding from the world, but in withdrawing to see it more clearly. Ezekiel was shown visions not when he was at the center of power, but when he was in exile. Separated, set apart, and in that silence he was able to see what others could not. When we listen deeply, we begin to notice patterns others miss. We sense timing. We understand what is urgent and what is not. We stop being ruled by fear because silence has taught us where real security lies. And in times of tension, we become calm centers instead of emotional reactors. This is what the world needs. People who live from the stillness, not the storm. People who don't need to be the loudest voice, because their presence speaks more than words. People who have encountered truth in silence, and therefore walk with a peace the world cannot explain. The signs of our times are not only found in visible changes, they are found in the invisible shifts happening in the collective spirit. What is rising? What is being revealed? What is being challenged? These questions are answered not in headlines, but in stillness. If you want to see clearly, turn down the noise. If you want to understand what God is saying in this moment, unplug from the chaos and reconnect with the silence between events. It is there that truth waits, not passive, not distant, but patient, always waiting for a heart still enough to hear. Let the silence become your teacher. Let it strip away the unnecessary. Let it humble your opinions. Let it deepen your awareness. Truth does not rush, it unfolds, and those who walk with truth must learn to slow down, to wait, to trust the pauses. The silence between events is not wasted time, it is sacred time. It is the breath before the word. It is the calm before the direction. It is where the eternal meets the temporary, where your soul meets its source, and where you become aligned with something far greater than yourself. In the silence between events, truth reveals itself, and those who listen well will be the ones who lead well when the world begins to shake again. They will carry a message not born of panic, but of purpose. Not formed in noise, but in clarity. This is the way of the wise. This is the way of the prophets. And this is the invitation for us all. Be still, be watchful. The silence is speaking. Destiny is not written in stone. It is shaped by conscious action. Many people believe that their future is fixed, that what is destined will happen no matter what they do. This belief can feel safe at times, like a way to release responsibility or explain the unexpected. But in truth, Destiny is not something that happens to us. It is something that responds to us. Every action, every thought, every choice we make is a brushstroke on the canvas of our future. What seems inevitable is often the result of repeated decisions, small habits, unseen alignments that come together over time. The prophets like Ezekiel did not speak of an unavoidable future. They spoke of possibilities, warnings and promises that invited people to participate in what would come next. When Ezekiel shared his visions, he was not saying, "This will happen no matter what," but rather, "This may happen if you do not return, if you do not awaken, if you do not act." To shape destiny requires awareness. It requires a person to stop living on autopilot and begin living intentionally. Most people do not think they are shaping their future. They wake up, repeat the same cycles, react to circumstances, and then wonder why life feels stuck or chaotic. But if we could see behind the veil, we would recognize that every response, every belief, every moment of integrity or compromise is planting seeds. Those seeds will grow, and their fruit will become our future. This is why prophecy matters, not to frighten, but to focus. It reveals what kind of future we are currently building and calls us to take conscious action if we want to change course. The people of Israel in Ezekiel's time had lost this sense of responsibility. They thought that because they were God's people, nothing bad could ultimately happen to them. They relied on tradition rather than transformation, but the message of the prophet disrupted that comfort. It reminded them that relationship without obedience, identity without integrity, leads not to blessing but to judgment. The same is true today. Many expect good outcomes without aligning with good principles. They hope for peace while harboring division, for clarity while feeding confusion, for progress while refusing change. But destiny is shaped by those who take full ownership of their part in the story. It is not enough to hear prophecy, one must respond to it. The call to conscious action begins with the inner world. A person must examine what they truly believe, what values they live by, what patterns they are repeating. Are those things leading toward a meaningful destiny, or are they drifting toward destruction? When nations rise against nations, when threats increase and alliances form, we must not only analyze the external moves, but also reflect on the inner state of our own hearts. Are we building peace or feeding fear? Are we acting from truth or reacting from pride? These questions shape destiny more than any prediction. Because destiny is not written in stone, it is written in the soul. And the soul is shaped moment by moment. Action is the bridge between what we know and what we become. Knowing what is right does not shape destiny, doing it does. Hearing a prophetic message does not alter the future, responding to it does. We must not be listeners only, but doers. This means living with intention, with courage, with awareness that our lives matter, that what we choose today has eternal weight, that the small decisions of this hour are building the foundation of what tomorrow will rest on. It is easy to look at the world and feel powerless, to believe that we are too small to make a difference. But the truth is, every action aligned with truth sends out a ripple. It shapes the atmosphere. It strengthens the light, and multiplied across time, it becomes a legacy. When we study prophecy, we are not just looking into the future. We are being handed a lens to look more deeply at the present. What is the prophecy revealing about our character, about our society, about our readiness? Are we aligned with the kind of values that can carry us through the challenges ahead? Or are we asleep, hoping that destiny will favor us without effort? The answer to these questions determines what unfolds next. This is why the greatest prophecies always end with an invitation: return, repent, rebuild, restore. These are not passive words, they are action words. And only action shifts destiny. We must also recognize that some parts of destiny are shared. Just as individuals shape their personal future, societies shape their collective future, and this is why your actions matter, even when no one sees them. Because culture is the sum of many unseen choices. If enough people choose fear, a fearful culture is born. If enough people choose love, love becomes the language of a generation. Your life is not isolated. It is connected, and the actions you take today may give someone else the strength to take the right action tomorrow. This is how movements begin. This is how history changes, not in great moments of fame, but in thousands of private moments of integrity. Ezekiel's vision is a warning, but it is also an opportunity. It says, "Look at what is coming if you stay on this path, but look also at what can be redeemed if you change." That is the beauty of divine warnings. They are always invitations to choose differently. Destiny is not a prison. It is a potential, but it must be activated, and only conscious action can activate it. You must choose to turn when the signpost says danger. You must choose to rise when your soul says grow. You must choose to act when others freeze, and when you do, you become part of the shaping force of destiny. The future is not something you wait for, it is something you build. It is formed in your daily disciplines, your thoughts, your prayers, your relationships. It is formed in how you treat others when no one is watching, in how you respond to difficulty, in how you pursue truth over comfort. This is the battlefield where destiny is shaped, not in grand events, but in quiet decisions. And the person who learns this becomes powerful, not in control over others, but in influence over the direction of their life. They stop drifting, they start building, they walk with intention, and their destiny begins to reflect their inner transformation. So when the world feels uncertain, when prophecy seems to unfold before your eyes, do not simply watch, act. Do not wait for rest your eyes. Do not fear the future, shape it. Every moment is an invitation. Every decision is a tool. Every breath is a chance to realign. The stones of destiny are not fixed. They are waiting to be moved by the hands of the awake. Destiny is not written in stone. It is shaped by conscious action. And today you hold the chisel,